We're back, everybody, and we are here with NWA World's Champion, Nick Aldis. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me, Chris.
I noticed something today that I never really noticed before, maybe because I've never seen it in print. The NWA, you're the World's Champion with an S at the end.
Yes.
Whereas everyone else is the World Champion. Is the NWA saying that there's other planets out there? Are they into...
You would not believe how much, like, since we kind of started the Lightning One era, or the oldest era, whatever you want to call it, of the NWA in 2017, how often we have to have this conversation, or how often, wrestling fans online, God love them, but they like to be right. And they don't like to be wrong. And how often it's like argued of like, why is it worlds and it's not worlds, it's world, and it's look, I don't know. I just know that that's what it says, and I like to honor the legacy and tradition of the title and the people that have come before it. And I like the way it sounds. I always remember hearing JR and other people refer to it like that back in the day, and saying like the world's champion. And it's funny because SoCal Val, who's a good friend of mine, I remember when I won the TNA world title back in 2013, and I was holding it through 2014. She pointed out to me once that during that run, I had said the world's champion. And she was like, I love that you said the world's champion, like the old school guy. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize, but just channeling Flair and Harley and whoever else. But so I think there was even remnants of sort of how I wanted to represent the world title even then. But yeah, it's worlds. I think the way that they look at it is you're the world's champion, as in like, because it's world apostrophe S, so belonging to the world. You're the world's champion,
The way I was looking at it too is, because when the championship first started, there's the NWA, and then there's all the little federations. So
Right.
if you think about it, these little territories were their own little world, but you were the head of all of these. The champion was the champion of all of these worlds.
That's another way of looking at it for sure.
So that's what I thought of. I'm going to be one of those wrestling geeks that kind of thinks of it that way.
Right. I can see that.
Or I'm just going to say that there's other planets and there's other wrestlers on other planets, and they're going to come down and challenge us.
Look, until somebody else shows up
from
another planet and contests that their claim to being the real world champion, you're looking.
So sometimes that bothers me too, like the whole other beings and other life forms. Like sometimes as humans, we're so egotistical to think we're the only ones here. This is the 100%. Only planet with people on it. There's nothing else out there, and this is it.
Right. When you just look at, first of all, I mean, we're going into a completely meta conversation now, but how long the universe and the world has been in existence for as far as we know. And then the percentage of time that humans have been involved in that tapestry, it's minuscule, but look, that's just, so 100 years from now, people will probably look back on these conversations, because obviously the main difference between now and a century ago and a century before that is obviously the ability to record and document everything. But they'll probably look back on some of these conversations and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe they believed that. I can't believe they thought that was the way that things were." And it's just, there's infinite possibilities in the human mind, and there's a hell of a lot that we don't understand. And I've just made peace with it.
About the 10 pounds of gold. I've always been a belt geek kind of thing. I've always loved the championship belts. And one of the things that I love about the NWA belt is, and it's like this in every other sport except wrestling, and the NWA, it does it. Your belt looks the way the NWA belt looks from the 70s on. So if I'm looking at a picture of you now and a picture of Harley Race, you're holding the same belt. When I look at the Super Bowl champion of 2019 and the Super Bowl champion of 1988, they're holding the same trophy, and I think that's what I loved about it. It's like, this obviously got passed down. It's now with you.
Yeah. This is another thing that comes up. When are you guys going to change your belt? What?
Yeah.
you kidding me? That's our number one asset.
Mm-hmm.
It's our most valuable marketing tool.
Yeah.
Because regardless of where we were at, when we started this thing, we could show pictures of Ric Flair or Harley Race, Dusty Rhodes, Terry Funk, whoever else, Jack Briscoe, holding the same belt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, would you change the Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
The World Cup? The FA Cup? No. Like, that's the point. It'd be like saying, when are the Olympics going to get rid of medals and start giving out something out? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's an iconic symbol. It's a symbol of excellence. But
Olympic paperweights would be great. Like if they gave out paperweights
well, hey,
for the Olympians.
Yeah.
Put it right on your desk.
Nice Olympic money clip.
Yeah.
But you're obviously a sports fan,
mm-hmm.
and so you understand it instantly. I think when I see that narrative and I see that come up, I think what it exemplifies to me is that one of the things that's really changed about wrestling is that so many wrestling fans now just have no sports context, right? No context or knowledge of sports whatsoever, and that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem to me, because it's like, to me, this is a worked sport before it's anime or video game referencing or sort of one scene, one shot drama, one take drama, one take plays. Like, this is a simulated sport first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the fundamental difference to me between what we want to achieve with the NWA versus what everyone else is doing, is that we want to be an entertaining sport versus sports entertainment.
The quickness of things too, and how much people want stuff immediately. How important has the internet and social media and stuff been to tell stories besides doing it in the ring or doing it on the NWA show, like that storytelling aspect?
Well, yeah, it's look, there's probably, I think there's, we could spend a day pontificating the pros and cons of social media and its effect on the business. But as a marketing tool, the wrestling business is no different to any other business in that regard when it comes to social media. People, I don't even know, even to this day, whether people truly understand that the reason that Facebook is such a monolithic giant in the world of corporate, in the corporate America and in the corporate world is because of advertising. It's their ability to deliver specific defined audiences to specific products and services and show, instantly. And so in that respect, obviously it's much easier. It's made things easier in terms of getting something off the ground. It's made things harder in terms of creating mystique, maybe, and making things feel special, and having an element of mystery to stuff. You just have to figure out how to navigate it, and decide how much you want to share and how much you don't. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a little part of me dies every time that I see an angle or a match or something happen on TV, and now immediately hear the people involved in it dissecting the decision-making process behind it. Like that part of me dies every time I hear that, because I'm just like, I just talk about this in 2 years from now. Like, you're killing the magic of it. Like, it's just, but it's so, you have to sort of, you have to make peace with it. And I think that overall, every great business and every great entity in entertainment over the years has been able to adapt and take advantage of whatever resources they had available to them, and then sort of innovate their use of it to put them, to make something special. And I think that's what our job is now, is instead of going, oh, it would be so much easier if it was like in the 80s, like I get that thrown to me all the time. God, can you imagine if you'd have been around in the 80s, you would have drawn huge money, you would have been this. Yeah, well, I wasn't. So who gives a shit? It's like, oh, you're just like Ric Flair or Nick Bockwinkel or Harley Race, and it's like, no, I'm not, but I understand, like, I'm inspired by those guys, but I try to take elements of what they did, just like they took elements of guys who came before them. And I do what I can to sort of to take advantage of what I have available to me. That's another thing I hear all the time. Oh God, can you imagine if those great promo guys of the 80s and stuff had Twitter and that's all they would have been doing? No, they would have been doing the same shit we're doing. Okay? Because wrestlers are golden goose guys. Hey, that golden goose is laying eggs. Well, let's just cut it open and get all the eggs, like that's wrestlers. That's the way wrestlers think. So, so don't tell me that like Dusty Rhodes and, and Flair would have known how to use Twitter correctly. No, they would have done the same shit everyone else. They'd have been like in the beginning, they'd have been doing, oh, just had cornflakes. Like, no one gives a fuck. Yeah. But it's like, it's just like, we all learned how to navigate it, and we all probably go back and we'd all look back at our first tweets and Facebook posts and Instagram stuff and probably cringe because we were all learning this new medium, like, so it's just, that's where we are.
You made that correlation, like, oh, the things I do in the gym really help me out athletically.
I mean, I knew that from the beginning. This is one of those weird things that's happened to the wrestling business, that like there's been this sort of war on information. Right, there's this like war on common sense now, right, based on everything's like, well, look at this person, they didn't need to do it. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. Like that's one of the, honestly, is like one of my biggest frustrations in being in this business, is having to deal with the constant sort of random false equivalent sort of arguments of people, right? Like, so if someone criticizes something that a certain wrestler does, this group of fans will jump to their defense and say, well, what about this wrestler? And it's like, well, we're not talking about that wrestler. We're talking about this wrestler, and it's just little things like that. But the the point I'm making with it, when it comes to working out and stuff, was that like there was, when I made the sort of the connection, or the I guess the decision that I wanted to not just be a fan of this, I wanted to do this. Like, I don't just want to be like these guys on TV. I want to be one of these guys. The first thing that stood out to me was, well, first things first, I better start working out, because I wanted to be like Triple H and The Rock and Steve Austin and, Sting and Goldberg. So what was the one thing they all had in common to a 13-year-old sitting, in rural Norfolk? I'm like, well, those guys are all jacked. Like,
right.
So I've always been pragmatic, I tried to be. And then this is the same in my business endeavors and everything else that I do outside of wrestling, in that you're not going to have the answer to everything. And at that point in time, I didn't know how I was going to, who was going to train me, or how I was even going to go about that. Did I need to go to America? Was there anywhere here I could learn to do this? And all of those questions that I started swimming around in my head. But the one thing I did know I could do that required nobody else was I could start working out, and I could take a vested interest in investing in myself. I tried to do a gallon a day.
Okay.
So I am one of those the typical stereotype meathead bodybuilders with the gallon jug.
You carry the gallon jug in there?
I mean, in the gym, yeah. Well, here's the thing about that, right? I never understood why. First of all, Planet Fitness can do one, right? Their whole marketing thing is so, like, I just want to say, Planet Fitness, for considering that their whole marketing scheme was that they were supposed to be the sort of unintimidating and sort of friendly. They're the most prejudiced gym I've ever encountered.
Really?
I've never been to. Well, let me put it this way. I went to a Planet Fitness once, and the guy was like, "Well, this gym isn't really for guys like you, to be honest." Wow. Okay. Like, thanks. Like that's right off the bat. He's like, "Yeah, our weights only go up to 60 pounds so that we avoid the bodybuilder types." And I said, well, hold on. Let me just explain. If you take part in the activity of lifting weights or performing in any resistance training in order to change your physique, you are bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. That is the term of it. Okay. Well, I'm not a competitive bodybuilder. Never have been, never will be. but I take part in bodybuilding. Anyone who uses resistance training to enhance their physique and change their body is bodybuilding. Okay. But I was just like, God, this is so this is the most unwelcome I've ever felt in any gym. I've been to like absolute spit and sawdust, hardcore bodybuilding gyms, and while I can understand how they can be intimidating to people, I'd never got lectured on like, this gym isn't for people like you, and I've been in those gyms and seen like total everyday normal guys in there, as well as the most hardcore ardent bodybuilder types. They don't, the thing is with that is that like the hardcore bodybuilder types, they care the least who else is in the gym, because they're in there for themselves. Mm-hmm. Like they're in there if they're anything like me, they've got the headphones in, they've got their training partner, and they're just going to work. Mm-hmm. First of all, most of them are only in there for like an hour. Mm-hmm. So maybe an hour and a half. You get in, get your shit done, and you get out. Mm-hmm. Like you're not sitting around going, "Well, look at that puny guy over there," and "Wow, look at this guy, he's only lifting the 20s. Wow, what a loser!" Like there's none of that. It's complete myth. And yet, we've got Planet Fitness who are like judgment free, and yet they're like throwing judgments around left and right.
Yeah,
like your lunk alarm.
Here's why I feel like that's a failed model for two reasons. Number one, why would you go to a place where there's no level of success around you? You're not going to get any better because there's no one around. Like when I'm at the gym and I'm working out, I'd be like, whoa, that dude's huge. I want to look like that dude. And it like gives you the motivation. Or you're kind of like, that dude's in a lot better shape than I am. I want to at least get to that level, number one. Number two, if you're really seriously considering getting into shape and it only goes up to a certain amount of weight, well, then half your customers are going to leave once they're past that because there's not going to stick around. So you're basically, you want this group of people who doesn't want to get in any better shape and doesn't really want to challenge themselves. They just want to walk into a gym.
It's the everybody gets a trophy gym. It's the everybody gets a trophy culture for adults. Yeah.
Yes. Could you imagine if you got asked to work for a wrestling company and they're like, well, there's no champions here. Everybody just kind of wrestles.
Hey, I wouldn't even joke about it because the way things are going, it's probably not that far away.
You have claim to, and I don't know what number we're on now. How many days have you held the belt? 800, 900, something like that?
It's
I think it was 800 in like September or so. I think
maybe it's 2 years. Uh-huh. It's over 2. It's 2 years from October. I think it was October 21st. Mm-hmm. That was when I got it back from Cody in Nashville. Mm-hmm. So 700 something. So
Luthez had it for over 2,300 days. 6 years. Do you think you got it in you?
Look, at the end of the day, it's while some elements of the industry, we like to try to honor and stay true to. I think we can all agree at this point that some are gone and never coming back, and I can't imagine the only way that would happen would be if it was the right thing to do for business. Mm-hmm. So who's to say? I know that like the suits things become
I was going to ask if you get a lot of fashion questions.
it's funny. Fashion is such a funny thing for me to hear, because it's like, I don't really think of myself as fashion. I've always thought of my style as timeless,
Okay.
you know, because I certainly couldn't tell you what's cool and what's not. And, you know, in terms of like what people should be wearing and stuff outside, but I just know what I look good in. But what I tend to try to go for when it comes to the suits and the combinations is I want like a good pop of color, and I don't want to go much more than 3 colors typically. So if I'm doing like, if the suit's pinstripe and the shirt is white, you know, I'm going to probably have the same color. I'm either going to have the same I'm either going to wear the waistcoat that matches the suit, or I'm going to wear a waistcoat that matches the tie. So that all in all, there's only 3 colors. You know, even if there's 4 or 5 different items, right? And always got to do the pocket square. I like the lapel pin. You know, I'm very much about accessories. It's like the details are, you know, that's what separates someone who owns a suit versus someone who wears a suit. You know what I mean?
Where did you get your style influences? Like, is that something that happened when you were younger, or?
No, not really. I mean, I you know, Daniel Craig as James Bond he rocks some pretty incredible suits and style. I mean, I've always liked formal, you know, the formal suits. Conor McGregor does some. I mean, he rocks it. I know people like to, you know, make the comparison to Flair, and while certainly I pay homage to him, it's, you know, obviously most of his stuff from that era was a very different style, because it was like the 80s, like power suits, you know. So the sort of the cuts and the collars and things have changed quite a bit. I don't know, really. Like, I'm just one of those people that I've always been comfortable in that type of attire. And what I came to realize quite quickly when I went for it this go around was the way people were responding to me. I sort of realized, okay, like I felt like I felt more serious about what I was doing by doing it. And I felt an immediate change in the way that the audience was responding to me as a result of it. So it just became this thing where I went, okay, that's my thing.
It kind of reminds me of, and I don't remember what the context was. I'm trying to remember, but Jimmy Hart had a quote. Oh, Jimmy Hart was told this by Dick Clark when he was young. Dick Clark.
I remember. I remember the story. I don't remember the quote, but I remember this story.
It was, you could either you could dress like the audience, but then you're going to find yourself in the audience. It was along those lines. Like, don't look like the people in the crowd.
Right.
Look different.
And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Jimmy has complimented me and used that same story as a way to kind of, because, you know, it's funny because to me, I don't see it as like, I didn't come up with anything revolutionary when I did this, but it's amazing how many old timers, or how many legends from the past have reached out to me and been like, I like you, kid. You know why? Because you make a fucking effort, because you take this seriously and you present yourself seriously. Like Cornette told me that at the Crockett Cup in 2019, Stan Lane, you know, and Jimmy, because I don't know Stan Lane very well, you know, obviously met him for the first time there, I think. But apparently he's not one who's very forthcoming with compliments, you know. And Jimmy's like, you know, it's pretty hard to impress Stan Lane, but apparently Stan Lane was like, man, this guy, like, he presents himself well, he dresses like a champion, talks like a champion, he looks like a champion, you know. That's half the, I mean, to me, that's all part of the work. When people try to make these sort of dismissive generalizations about like the look, God, that drives me crazy. Like, as if somehow working on having a great look is somehow like lazy, where it's like, no, only concentrating on being good at wrestling moves is fucking lazy. Right? Like, You know, I remember there was a period where the sort of troll fans would really give Randy Orton a lot of stick, and you know, Randy Orton's the best worker in the business,
Mm-hmm.
and they would give Randy this, oh, another rest hold, like, you know, like, and refer to him as lazy, and be like, listen, getting up and not selling, and just getting up and just you know, memorizing and reciting endless dangerous moves that you don't sell, and that now making it more difficult for everyone else on the card after you, and everyone who comes on every show after this one, just so you can get a reaction now. That's fucking lazy. Not having the courage to commit to the acting, essentially, not having the courage to commit to your facials and to creating a context and to your body language and to selling and the emotional investment of the audience, and instead just getting up and doing another cool move. That's fucking lazy.
Yes. One great compliment that I heard about Randy Orton, and you'll probably appreciate this because I feel like you kind of do this too. Someone said, watch a Randy Orton match. Don't watch the moves. Watch what he does in between the moves.
100%.
There's nothing wasted. His face, reacting with the crowd, reacting with his opponent. There's no wasted motion.
Listen, I've had the privilege in my career of having my shit dissected by, you know, Bubba Dudley, Billy Gunn, Kurt Angles, you know, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. I mean, just the list goes on and on of these greats. Okay. And not a single one of them ever said, you know, you need to do more cool moves. Do you know what I mean? Like, every single one of them, like Billy especially, he would get on me a lot early on and be like, look, man, when you lay that shot in, you know, don't just do that, and then you got to do this, and then like let that register and do this and do that, you know. And he was one of the ones who really drilled that into me, of like, pay attention to everything you're doing in between, you know. And there we'll go back to bodybuilding for a second. First scene in Pumping Iron, if you've seen the movie, is Arnold and Franco doing ballet, right? Obviously the idea being, for sort of regular audiences, they're going, why are these big bodybuilder guys doing ballet? Because the context was that they're working on those skills for their posing routines, and the ballet instructor says to them, because they're not just watching you here and here, you know, it's here and how you transition to this one, and then, and you know, and it is, you know, like, that's why Ed Corney was so sought after for posing, because he was the best poser. Because it was like, he didn't just hit the double biceps and then, you know, turn around and hit the back. He would spread his fingers out and sweep, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. That's showbiz. We're in show business.
When he came back and you guys wrestled, it was the collaborative effort, the two of you, not just with the match, but with the interviews and the videos and stuff, that it made him love wrestling again. How many people do you think are in the business right now that they're just kind of just in it, and they're creatively, they know they can't do anything, and they're just kind of punching the clock and collecting a paycheck?
Well, at the risk of being too controversial, how many people are under contract at WWE?
So let's say,
I mean, you know, look, I'll tread carefully. My wife works there, but that's the sort of quid pro quo now, isn't it? Like, you go there and you take the money, and you give up your decision-making abilities, basically. Like, to me, it does seem a little counterintuitive. Let me be as polite about this as I can. You know, the number one company in the industry, in the genre, scours the global landscape for the best talent that have, well, not always, but for, you know, that you theoretically scouring the globe for the talent that they either think has the most potential, or has built a fan base, and, you know, is proven as having a track record of being able to sell tickets, or sell pay-per-view, or sell merchandise, or you know, be able to tell stories and elevate their opponents in the ring. And then they take them and they go, okay, from now on, we tell you what to say, what to do, how to walk, how to shit. You know, so I mean, that wasn't the way it used to be. Okay, and I'm look, I'm not saying anything here that hasn't been said 100 times already, but something has to change, because the for a company that continuously references the success of Steve Austin and The Rock and, you know, and all these stars of this last sort of golden era, they've taken away all of the freedoms that were afforded to those guys to be able to become those stars and become those characters, become those money making commodities. But hey, the business is always changing, and the one thing I remind people about sometimes is, you know, Hulk Hogan didn't grow up thinking, God, I want to be a WWE superstar and I want to work for Vince McMahon and be part of WrestleMania. WrestleMania didn't exist. He had Hulkamania and Hulk, you know, the Hulk Hogan character and the wave of popularity existed prior to, you know, to his run with Vince McMahon. It was a collaborative effort between those two entities that helped create WrestleMania and you know, spawn this new you know, explosion of popularity of the genre. So if your whole mindset coming into the industry is just got to work for Vince McMahon, I've just got to work for WWE, if I could just get there, then that's a limiting belief, in my opinion now. And I had that limiting belief myself, you know, but at some point I realized that I was very gratified by being involved on a sort of molecular level of you know, of being synonymous with a brand and being part of these other events that help shape the course of the industry, like All In, and, you know, and these sort of the NWA and Ring of Honor partnership really set the tone for what we're now seeing with AEW and Impact, and what we'll continue to see. Trust me, I've been saying since 2017, you know, collaboration and cross-pollination is the future of the industry. It has to be, because it's what the audience want. And just because they might not be listening to the audience, and when I say they, you know who I mean, doesn't mean that the rest of us have to not listen to them. That's exactly what the rest of us should be doing, is listening to the audience. And what they want is never before seen matchups and cross-pollination. And whoa, wouldn't it be cool if? Yeah, it would be cool. Let's make it happen. So, look, the thing, the other thing that appealed to me when I was looking at all this was, I'm a big boxing fan, and I've had the privilege of being involved in some boxing broadcasts lately, and, you know, I did some stuff for the Tyson Roy Jones fight with Fight TV and stuff. But when I would watch the build up to these fights, you know, I remember at the time we were getting ready to do the NWA stuff. We had Mayweather McGregor and then Canelo Triple G, like back to back. And, you know, while sort of Showtime and HBO were kind of taking little digs at each other about, like, well, their fight's a sideshow and our fights, you know, in my mind, I was going like, I'm going to buy both of these pay-per-views because they're different, because they appeal to me for different reasons. But at the same time, they both managed to get me to part with my money, because ultimately they created a situation where I went, man, this has culminated in a thing where I can't miss. You know, I can't miss this fight. It's going to be a big time event, a prize fight, you know? And that's what I wanted to do with wrestling, because I felt like there was so much wrestling happening all the time, in the sense of, here's a ring, here's a couple of guys, and they're having these long matches, which we used to be reserved for something with a build up. And now it's just common fare every week, 20-minute matches every week. Like, to me, it's after a while, nothing feels special.
Mhm.
So I wanted to go, it's not about being old school. It's about taking the elements from that era that worked
Mhm.
and applying it with a modern delivery system. So had the NWA and the territories had access to, the ability to make these long form documentary build pieces for these things, you can bet your ass they would have done it.
Mhm.
They just didn't at the time. It was just not possible then. The tech didn't exist. Or if it did, it was going to be for like Starcade or the Great American Bash or, something like that. But we have the ability now to, if you have the talent, the production talent, if you have the editing skills and the vision, to be able to sort of tell this story, to build as to why people should care about this one matchup, you can do it now. And in my mind, I was like, I'd rather have 20 title matches in a year that all felt important than have one every week that was going to get some instant gratification on social media, but then be forgotten about the next day. And that's really what it comes down to, is it's like, I believe in moments, not matches. Matchups people want to see. And I'm very grateful to everyone listening to this. I'm very grateful to all of you. And I hear you and I see you, who you say, I want to see Nick Aldis against this person, that person, in this company, in that company. I hear you. I see them all. Mm-hmm. It's not my call. But look, if the business is right and the numbers add up, I'll be there, because ultimately this is about the audience and it's about creating moments that can last forever.
I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. Dream match. Since everybody says who they want to see you against, who's your dream match?
Triple H.
Okay.
Triple H is what
I did not see that coming, but go ahead.
he's one of the people that made me want to get into the industry.
Okay.
In the sense that I was a fan of the business. Bret Hart was my hero, right? Let's not get that twisted. Bret Hart is my hero. And I wanted to be like Bret as a kid, but I just wanted to be cool like Bret. Like, it was more about the overall sort of moral values and stuff that he get, work hard and, fight for what's right, whatever. But by the time I started articulating, like, I think I might want to do this, it was like, when I started to realize, when I was watching Triple H and The Rock feud in 2000, and as big a fan of The Rock as I was, and like everyone was, and people still are, there was a little part of me that was going, I think it'd be kind of cool to be Triple H in this situation. Like, just, and the way he wrestled and the way he controlled the story, the way he controlled the movement in the ring, and the way he, like, it was very reminiscent of Harley Race and guys like that, and that's obviously what I latched onto, and that's sort of what appealed to me. Now, when you look at where everything has gone and everything that's happened in the last couple of years, and Harley Race, before he passed away, he was not a guy who gave out praise very easily either, but he endorsed me as NWA champion. And I'd like to think that means something. And, they're sitting there, and they're sitting there on all these very valuable IPs, Starcade, Great American Bash, right? War Games. And the NWA is sitting here ready to work, ready to go to business. And to me, if you're truly about the fans, right? If you're truly about the audience and the historical significance and context of this industry, it's a no-brainer. It's there for you.